Okay, next question. This is a question regarding densities and dimensions. Fantastic. I love those ones. Some sources say that there are 8 densities to this octave. Other sources say there are 12, 13, or 14 dimensions. Can you explain why this difference and what it means? What is the difference between dimensions and densities? Also, it is said there are many octaves. Okay. Oh, wonderful question. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to answer all of it in this kind of format because this is going to involve discussing the difference between small infinity and large infinity and how you can perceive the difference between small infinity and large infinity when they're both infinity. So that being said, I'll just try to quickly just give kind of the highlight points here. Can you explain why this difference and what it means? Okay, so first of all, the difference between dimensions and densities. Think of the universe as a school that has 7 grades, and when you graduate that 7th grade, you then have fulfilled the entire schooling and you then become part of the universe again. So 8, but technically 7, but there's 8. Okay, so an octave, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So you have do and you have do, but the high do can be seen as the top of that octave you just said, or it can be the start of the next octave, right? That's the tricky thing with do. So do, the low do could even be the top of the octave below that. So that's why there's like 7 densities, but 8 if you count that top do to be part of that octave that you just sang. So it kind of depends on how you're looking at it, okay? So we have the universe, which is a school. Then you have your 7, 8 grades. And then within each grade, you have different things that you have different places where these classrooms are, and you have to put on certain types of clothes to go into certain types of classrooms. And there's no hard and set rules as to you have to wear this type of clothing in this type of classroom. It's kind of a little more free flowing with what you can kind of do in each classroom, but it's kind of generally agreed that these are kind of certain things you have to do, but it's not an absolute. So that's kind of the thing. You have your universe, you have your 7, technically 8 grades, which are the densities, and then you have your dimensions, which is why you can have 12, 13, 14, however many different sources say there are, because it's not an absolute. They're just kind of certain key markers in the structure that some people consider is part of the whole thing, and others think that they're separate but still important. So it kind of depends upon your definitions. But when it comes to the densities, the grades, you can't be in grade 1 and understand what's going on in grade 7. You have to learn everything in grade 1 to develop your consciousness to the point where you can graduate or ascend to the next grade, which would be the second grade. And then you have to experience and learn all these things in second grade before you can graduate or ascend to third grade. And then you have all of these things that you have to learn in third grade before you can graduate to the fourth grade. But at any time, if you're not learning what you need to learn to get to the next grade, you're going to have to repeat that grade. Nothing wrong. You just didn't learn the things necessary in order to graduate to the next grade. So your level of consciousness is the density. Your level of consciousness is the grade. What you do, the type of classroom, the type of clothing you wear, that's the different densities, how you experience that kind of stuff. Those are the dimensions. So, yeah, you have your classrooms, you have your grades. So grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, which we're in right now. We are all in grade 3. All of us. We're all in grade 3. However, because we are all having third density consciousness now, but we are learning to be able to go into fourth grade, learning to ascend into the fourth density. But in third grade, you have 2 classrooms. You have the third dimension classroom, and you have the fourth dimension classroom. And the difference between those classrooms is how much you understand third grade. That's really the only way to kind of explain such a complicated concept on kind of this kind of Q&A. So I hope that makes sense. So yeah, you have your grades, your 7 grades, and then once you graduate into 8th grade, you become one with the universe again. You become one with God. You become one with Source, whatever you want to call it, whatever floats your boat. So, and then you have your classrooms, which then determine how you learn that information. Okay, so then let's see what else there is here. Okay, so that's also why some sources say there's 12, 13, or 14 dimensions, is because it depends upon your definition as to what's in a classroom. Some people combine classrooms in their definitions. Others have very separate classrooms for how you're going to experience whatever it is that you're learning for that grade. So that's why it's kind of, but the hard and fast rule are the grades. There's no wishy-washiness there. Those are the grades, which just so happen to match our chakras. Isn't that interesting, huh? Let's see. Okay, let's see. And it is said there are many octaves. Yes, many octaves. So, yeah, so this is the thing, is that there is no way of knowing how many octaves there are, how many returning back, like once you graduate, you go through all of the grades and you reunite and become one with Source, God, universe, again, whatever is your label. It is taught to us from those of the light realm that pattern of schooling continues, because that is their understanding. But that's all we can do, is just report upon what we are taught from those that are in a higher grade than us. But those that are in a higher grade than us only know so much because they're only at a certain grade. So in theory, that octave will just keep repeating. So the schooling just keeps going and going and going and going and going. But that's where it starts hurting the brain because it's just infiniteness upon the spiraling of the infiniteness upon the spiraling of the infiniteness. It's kind of trippy. Let's see. Okay, so is the next octave an existence of higher consciousness? So after we have graduated all of the grades for this universe, is the next repeating of the whole schooling cycle, grades 1 through 8, is that of a higher consciousness? Or is it a rebirth of consciousness into a new process? That's what is unknown, because as far as I know, the light beings of love that contact me do not know themselves, because their teachers have not taught them. So that is where things are unknown. We do not know what happens after the graduating of all the grades and the reuniting with Source God Universe. Are we starting over? Which seems doubtful. It doesn't seem logical at all. It does. Oh yeah, that just does not feel right. That does not feel right at all. So have you guys figured that out? That when you think about something, if it kind of feels weird, say it out loud. And if you've noticed that you start wanting to repeat something, that's your light team helping you recognize the answer. So that's why it's so good to talk out loud sometimes as well. Or is it a rebirth of consciousness into a new process? That seems much more interesting and exciting. And that's what the whole purpose of everything is to learn and explore, not to repeat. So it feels so much better, just the thought of things going to another schooling system with another 8 grades, but in a completely different way. That feels exciting. That feels joyful. So I think that's what feels accurate to me. I hope that helped. The difference between dimensions and densities. Everyone uses the term dimensions the way everyone uses the term Kleenex as universal for a tissue. There is a massive difference between densities and dimensions. So that's why people get so confused with things. But you have 7, 8, depending upon how you calculate it, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, grades, which are your densities, your consciousness levels, your chakras, and then you have the different classrooms of how you learn that information, what kind of form you're going to be in order to experience and learn that information. So you have the grades and you have the classrooms. So I hope that helped. Let me know if you have more questions about that. But like I said, try to condense it for this kind of thing. So next question.